Welcome in to Start Sit Different Day. Oh, one of my favorite shows of the week. It is week 4, Saturday, just a little over 24 hours before lineups are going to lock, and we are here to help you answer all of your coin flip start sit questions. I know I've had a bunch of conundrums this week with the injuries to top tier receivers and a couple to top tier running backs. I have Joel Wirth and Matt Donnelly here to help me out. We're here to answer all of your questions. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, Joel, Matt, how are we?
Morning.
I'm doing good here. I was just jamming out to the tunes there, waiting on the introduction there. I wasn't quite ready to be pulled back into the stream yet, but I was chilling. I was digging it.
As long as you were having fun, that's the goal. My goal with that was like, when I made it, I want people to enjoy themselves early on a Saturday morning, and here we are. That's what we're doing. Oh, gents, just a couple of good mornings. Albert, listener, Faith. Hello, Faith. How are you? Faith normally here with us, but traveling home from living out of state for a couple days due to Hurricane Ian. All right. Quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, and kickers, because Ryan puts in there kickers are people too. We have a bunch of injuries, gentlemen, and a lot of them, I am sure, are going to pop up in questions today because guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen are out. So who do we replace them with? Now, at the quarterback position, we already know Dak Prescott's been out. That's not a surprise. Mac Jones is out, but that doesn't really affect. I can't imagine many people were starting Mac Jones to begin with, but it could potentially affect guys such as Jacoby Myers, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, who people do have on their rosters. Jameis Winston is doubtful. That is a huge one. Andy Dalton will most likely play for the New Orleans Saints in London, and Michael Thomas is out as well. So it'd be interesting to hear everyone's thoughts on guys like Chris Olave this week with the backup quarterback, but no wide receiver one. So running backs out. David Montgomery, fire up Khalil Herbert. DeAndre Swift and Boston Scott. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Cordell Patterson, Melvin Gordon, all questionable. Guys like Cook and Kamara played last week. Patterson played last week as well. I feel like this is going to be an ongoing theme with McCaffrey. He will probably be questionable to just going into every single week. It seems like they're being like cautious with him, so which is good, but McCaffrey questionable. Out at receiver, the aforementioned Amon-Ra St. Brown and Keenan Allen. Michael Thomas sits. Hunter Renfrow back-to-back weeks. Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney both out. The top 3 receivers, I believe, for the Giants are David Sills, Richie James, and Kenny Golladay. So
yeah, that's where we're at.
In that order.
So fire up the Giants receivers. Hey, all I'm hearing, Kenny Golladay breakout week. That's all I'm hearing. He finally doesn't have the competition around him, so he can perform. AJ Green is also out. Doubtful, Brashad Perryman. That is pretty big. Perryman, a semi-reliable target for Brady, and they're obviously playing against the Chiefs this week, so high-quality matchup. Gabe Davis, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, Jarvis Landry, Russell Gage, DJ Chark, Jacoby Myers, Rondale Moore, Zay Jones, Josh Reynolds, Julio Jones, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Michael Gallup, and the guy who obviously every single person has, Kyle Phillips. They're all questionable. Did you get all that? There are a lot of people questionable.
I'm questionable every day, so I totally get where these guys are coming from.
Matt Donnelly lives with the Q tag next to his
Every
name
time.
the entire time.
Yep.
Tight ends. Foster Moreau and Brevin Jordan both out. Not really guys people probably had targeting on their lineups. Ryan Griffin is doubtful, but a couple guys that could play into some fantasy matchups. Dawson Knox and Dalton Schultz, both questionable going into the week. And kickers, of course, because they're people too. Shout out to Lindellians. Austin Seibert is out. Harrison Butker, Matt Prater, Cairo Santos, all questionable. I'd be shocked if Harrison Butker plays. I don't know what their contingency plan is because they cut Matt Amendola because he's terrible. So if Bucker doesn't play, maybe they have Justin Reed kick again. And that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed seeing Justin Reed kick. So if you have him in IDP, hey, maybe you get some kicking points out of him as well. Oh, all right. We have a few questions. We'll wait for a couple more to come in. Thoughts on Thursday night football, Joel? Let's not talk about the injury, because at this point I think everything's kind of been said about the injury. I don't really know. But let's focus on the football. How did you feel on both sides of the football from Cincy and Miami?
I think the most concerning thing was how lackluster Zach Taylor's play calling was. I mean, they just kept running Joe Mixon into a stone wall in the middle of the line. And you would think after a few dozen times seeing that, they would go away and try and get something else. But so I was in on Cincinnati, avoiding the Super Bowl hangover, but they had, I'm kind of worried about them. The Dolphins, I mean, Tua is going to be out for a while. So, are your Tyreek Hill shares and your Jalen Waddle shares going to take a hit with Teddy Two Gloves at quarterback? That's a little nerve-wracking.
No. Matt, anything from Thursday?
Well, once upon a time, Teddy Bridgewater, he did support two pretty good wide receivers back in the day there. So I'm not too worried about Teddy Bridgewater. And wherever you have Tyreek Hill in your rankings, it is too low. I don't care if it's Teddy. I don't care if it's Tua. You're talking about a guy who was the first player with multiple 10-catch, 150-yard games in the first 4 seasons since he did it last time. So Tyreek Hill has been doing it. He's basically the first person in Dolphins history to do this, and he's only played there for 4 games. So I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be just fine. I am kind of worried about the mental aspect of things. I'm no psychologist here. My initials are MD, so I am technically a doctor, I guess, by all stretches of anyone's imagination here. So I feel like I can answer this question. But someone like Jalen Waddle, watching what happened there in front of him, someone he knows very well, what kind of mental effect does that have on him moving forward? I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing for this team. Are they going to rally behind the whole situation, or is it going to be something that's going to be kind of a block for them going ahead? When we saw Tyreek Hill out there, he didn't seem to be hurt too much by that whole situation there. He was able to go out there, still perform well. I mean, I wasn't impressed by the Bengals when it was all said and done, whether that's that play calling, this and that. I mean, T. Higgins is the real deal there. And I know people call it 1A, 1B, and it's kind of a hot take to say that maybe that T. Higgins is the better of the 2 receivers there when comparing him to Jamar Chase, because lots of teams are going to roll that coverage over to Chase. But, I mean, I think we have to start having T. Higgins ahead of Jamar Chase in your weekly rankings from this point out.
I've been saying since T. Higgins was drafted, they drafted him to be the next A.J. Green, and that's very apparent in what they're doing. Build, size, speed, everything was the exact same between the two, so it made perfect sense. And I think Jamar Chase is the more talented receiver, but T. Higgins currently is the better fantasy option. And I mean, we've seen that week to week. We've seen people pull up the stats. T. Higgins is arguably the better option week in and week out. No, very, very good reactions. Love to see that. And now we have a bunch of questions. Okay, now let's get into these. First one, loyal listener Carrington, tight end question to kick off the day. Wow, I can't remember a time where we've actually kicked off the show with a tight end question. Gerald Everett, Dalton Schultz, David Njoku. Let's assume Dalton Schultz is healthy. Schultz is home against the Commanders. Njoku is in Atlanta. Gerald Everett is in Houston. Joel, who are you going with? PPR.
Schultz is healthy. I'm going to go with him. I think there's some sneaky shootout potential in that game. Dallas is coming off the Monday night game, coming back home, watching defense has been pretty bad. So I'll kind of default to him. I'm not going to trust Njoku in back-to-back to blow up in back-to-back games. That's never happened before.
Matt?
Well, tight end questions are the type of questions that I can get behind here every week. So I'm okay answering this question. Now, I do have a general rule, basically 2 rules. You don't go chasing points. And you don't go chasing waterfalls. But in this case, I'm going to chase it with David Njoku here, because Atlanta, they are allowing 20.4 fantasy points per contest to the tight end position here. Schultz is just coming back into it. We don't know what this LA Chargers offense is going to look like. I think it's going to be, let's get back to Austin Eckler this week against the Houston Texans. So give me David Njoku here. In fact, I think I may be bold enough to say that he may be the highest scoring tight end in this contest this week. Yeah, there, I said it.
Pew. Another thing to think about too, that I've heard a bunch of people bring up, with Rashawn Slater being out, they might have Everett, who is not known as a blocking tight end, but they might have Everett at least stay in and chip the defensive end, not spread out wide or line up in the slot like he normally would, like his build is supposed to be. So that's something that could hurt Everett. I'm going to go with Njoku as well. Ryan sold him on me earlier in the week on No Pun Intended. So I'll go with Njoku. Dalton Schultz is probably your most reliable option of the bunch, just because you know what you're getting normally from that offense week in, week out. The Chargers and the Browns can go any which way direction whatsoever, but Atlanta's secondary is terrible. I will go with David Njoku. Another one from Carrington. Pick, dose, Elijah Moore, Tyler Lockett, and the Dortch. Arizona is in Carolina going across country, and the Seattle Seahawks are in Detroit. New York is in Pittsburgh. So you got every single guy on the road. Can't play any home advantage here. Joel, who are you going with out of the two? And it is a PPR.
Not Dortch. I'll take Moore and Lockett.
Okay, Matt.
See, and I'm going to go. I think we're all in agreement here that Lockett is the play no matter what of the three here, just because Detroit, those corners, they can't cover worth a lick. I know Geno Smith's still throwing the ball, but I mean, Lockett, you can lock him in your lineup. I'm going to go with the human Dortch here because you just mentioned AJ Green's not in the lineup. Rondell Moore is questionable, and I'm not expecting him back in. If he does come back, he's still dealing with those soft tissue injuries that have kind of sidelined him so far. Elijah Moore, we don't know what he's going to look like with Zach Wilson. He could be good. It's like that Simpsons one episode there where Homer wins a boat. You remember that one? He wins a boat, but instead of taking the boat, the guy offers him, you could have the boat, or we can give you this box, this mystery box, which may be even a bigger boat. So he took the mystery box. We don't know what that mystery box is with this New York Jets team. We don't know how it's going to look like with Zach Wilson. I mean, we're talking about a team that threw the ball 75% of the time with Joe Flacco. Are they going to be able to do that with Zach Wilson? I don't know. So for me, I feel like Dortch may be the safer one of the two based on what we're dealing with here. And Kyler Murray obviously being a much better quarterback than Zach Wilson.
I'm going to go with Lockett and Moore, and that's because Elijah Moore was interviewed, and they asked how he was going to do, and they shared it on Twitter, and then he put out a tweet saying the bad times don't last forever or something like that. I'm like, oh, blow up week. Here it comes. If Nelson Aguilar can get 100 yards on the Steelers, so can Elijah Moore, because Nelson Aguilar can't catch the football. Elijah Moore can. I'm going to go with Elijah Moore. Again, that's a real dice roll. Dortch is probably safer, but Elijah Moore and Lockett are probably the plays for me. I'm not the biggest Geno Smith fan, but I mean, if they get into garbage time, Tyler Lockett had 9 catches for 107 yards in garbage time. That was nice against the 49ers. So you're set up fairly well, I think, no matter the direction you go. Lockett's the safest. Dortch and Moore, I mean, they both have very high ceilings because of the offenses they play in. So, Gemmo, my guy, Josh Palmer or Romeo Doubs? That was definitely not a question I thought I'd utter in week 4. Joel, Palmer is in Houston. The Packers are at home against the Patriots. Who are you going with?
That's tough. I'll take Palmer just because of his role in the offense with Keenan Allen out. I'm assuming he's going to be out. I think was that made officially yesterday?
Yeah, officially out.
Yeah, I like Palmer in that offense. Doubs, I like, but I wonder at some point defenses are going to try and take him away, and Christian Watson's going to be back this week. So I think Palmer's a safer play.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, these two defenses that they're facing are pretty even. Houston's allowing about 30.93 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, where New England's allowing about 27.3. So really, it's coming down to how you're feeling about this whole thing. I do think the game script is going to flip a little bit more so in favor of the Chargers. I'm hoping so here. I mean, I think New England can keep this game close. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot against Green Bay, which means less opportunities. I wanted to originally Palmer, being Canadian, supporting my boy there. But last game there when Allen missed there, Mike Williams, he absolutely went off. There's no answer for him. I really do believe that they want to get back to everything that Austin Eckler's. They got to do something, man. The dude's averaging like 2.1 yards per carry this season. It's been absolutely atrocious what he's been able to produce. So I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs here just because the last time a wide receiver not named Devontae Adams had 8 catches in a single game, you had to go back to week 1 of 2018 when Randall Cobb did that. So I think we're starting to see the wide receiver 1 role transition more from Alan Lazard to Romeo Doubs. I mean, it's not a big thing. I think it's a risk either way. Neither one of these guys is a guarantee. I'm going to go with Doubs here just because, hey, I just like the opportunity for him. I think he is that wide receiver 1, where Palmer's going to be that wide receiver 2, probably behind Mike Williams this week.
The thing with Palmer is it just feels like he's not on the same page with Herbert. If you watch that Kansas City game, you saw how open he was on almost every single route that he ran, but the timing
was the right route.
It was the right route, but the timing with Herbert was just off. It was just off. It was sometimes he didn't get his head around quick enough, which again, that's a straight timing route. But other times, I mean, he was open and Herbert missed him. So I think that might just be a little bit of a chemistry thing. Maybe Herbert thought he was supposed to be a yard deeper than he was or a yard shorter, but it seemed like he wasn't on the same page. Now they got there and he scored a touchdown. He had a huge play last week. I'm going to take Palmer because I think he has a better chance of scoring. I don't think Doubs has a better chance of scoring.
I think the one thing that you're talking about there when it talked about Palmer there, I think a lot of it does come on to Justin Herbert. I mean, they're using an ultrasound to stick a needle in his rib cage right now. I mean, that's where we're at when it comes to Justin Herbert. And I think more than anything that is probably affecting him, getting that little extra on the ball and this other stuff. So that's one of those other things I think that they're going to run the ball or try to run the ball a little bit more against Houston. And Jerry Hughes, I mean, he's got like 4 sacks this season. I mean, Houston, they can get after the quarterback. So they're going to be looking at max protection for the most part, which means you're looking at probably double coverage on these wide receivers on the outside. So that's something I'm really interested in. That matchup inside the matchup is going to be key.
Old man Jerry Hughes still getting
still
it done.
kicking.
I think he's like 75. It's incredible he's still playing this game. All right. McSweet. Hello, friend. Pick 3 at the flex in a peeper. Rashad Bateman, who is at home against the Bills. Jerry Jeudy, who is, oh my God, I'm forgetting. That is in Las Vegas against the Raiders. Jeff Wilson is at home against the Rams on Monday Night Football. ETN is in Philadelphia. Michael Carter in Pittsburgh. Allen Robinson, Monday night in San Francisco. Richie James. Wow. Again, just incredible that these names are in start-sit questions. Richie James is at home against the Chicago Bears. You need to pick 3 out of these 7 or 8 names. Joel, I will start with you in the exact same direction we've been going. Who are you rolling with?
I'm going to start with Bateman because obviously Buffalo's got a really good defense, but they had a tough game in the heat in Miami, and now they got to turn around and go to Baltimore. They had to chase Tyreek Hill around the field in that weather on Sunday, and now they've got to come back and chase Lamar Jackson. I think that's going to be a tired defense. So I'll start with Bateman. I kind of like ETN this week just because it's a tough matchup with Philly, but DeAndre Swift kind of went off against them in week 1. So I don't think it's unheard of that he goes nuts. I think he's a better bet than Robinson this week, just because of the game script. Judy's got a really good matchup with LA, but I just don't trust him. So I'll go with Jeff Wilson for the 3rd.
Okay, Bateman, ETN, Wilson. Matt.
I don't like any of these options, and it's not because they're not good players. I mean, those matchups are not great for any of them. You look at Bateman and Buffalo. I mean, keep an eye on that report for Buffalo coming out of there. Dane Jackson could possibly come back. Jordan Poyer, he's possibly coming back this week. I mean, heads up Dane Jackson. He suffered that nasty injury there a couple of weeks ago. He's back in practice a little bit. Tre'Davious White, he's still out. But, I mean, Teron Johnson, he's still there. Buffalo, they're getting things done even though they're banged up in the secondary. Jerry Jeudy, I want to say he'd be an easy start, but it's just not clicking right now. I mean, you could definitely put passing yards up on this Raiders team, but I just don't know if that's the answer there. Jeff Wilson against the Rams. The Rams are like one of the top teams when it comes to run defenses here. You can throw the ball on them, which I think San Francisco is probably going to do. I just don't know if you can run on them. Travis Etienne, Michael Carter, both guys in split type shares. Allen Robinson, I can't trust him, man. The guy's got like 1 touchdown his last 13 games. You got to leave him on your bench right now and hope Richie James, you know what? I think Richie James, this is where we're at right now, especially with this New York Giants team. Richie James may be the safest play of this group right now, just because I think the volume is going to shift its way towards him. It's basically Saquon Barkley and Richie James this week. I mean, that's where we're at with the Giants. So give me Richie James. If I had to take a shot here, you know what? Give me Rashad Bateman and PPR. I guess I'll go with Travis Etienne. I'll lean that way because when the ball is in his hand, he's looked good. James Robinson has looked fantastic. You mentioned DeAndre Swift and that success there, pass catching out of the backfield against the same Eagles team a few weeks ago. I'm interested in what kind of plays Doug Peterson has designed up for his playmakers in this contest. And Etienne, when he has that ball in his hand, he's going to make you miss. I think he's forcing a missed tackle every 1.73 attempts there. So this is something that I like. So give me Bateman, give me Etienne, and give me Richie James.
I'm going to go Richie James. I'm going to go Bateman, and I'm going to go Judy. I am the way bigger Cortland Sutton fan at this point, but apparently the Raiders have been smoked in the slot. Whatever. That's fine. They haven't played a good outside wide receiver outside of Mike Williams, but they've been cooked in the slot. So, this is the point where you'd think Jerry Jeudy would do something. So I'll roll with all the receivers here. I don't like Wilson against the Rams. James Robinson over Travis Etienne. I don't really know what to think of Michael Carter at this point, and Allen Robinson's a bum. So
the thing with the Raiders pass defense is they've given up the 8th fewest yards to wide receivers this season. They've only given up 434 of them and 2 touchdowns. So everyone likes to make fun of this Raiders pass defense. It really hasn't been that bad when you take a look at the grand scheme of things. Now, we're talking about Jerry Jeudy. I mean, they've played some pretty good teams here, too. I mean, forget about Tennessee because they didn't have any wide receivers. Treylon Burks, Robert Woods, that's not going to put a whole lot of scare into anybody. But they did play the Chargers team with Keenan Allen, with Mike Williams back in week number 1, which they lost. So just keep in mind that, I mean, they may be getting beat in the slot, but they've been pretty good against wide receivers so far this season.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that bullshit. I think the Raiders secondary is this. Yes, numbers are correct. Their secondary is trash. Their secondary is garbage. They are not a good defense. I cannot stress that enough. That's not a good defense. And to me, I think skill wins out at some point. Right? Keenan Allen, before he got hurt in that game, I think he had just under 100 yards. Smoking
65,
them.
I think. Yeah, he was doing good. He had about 65 on like 5 or 6 catches. Mike Williams was doing nothing.
And that's the thing. I talked about this on Wednesday because everyone's like fake Cortland Sutton. They do so well against the outside receiver. How many times have we played Mike Williams in a matchup where he's supposed to get 3 million yards and he gets 10? All the time, because that's who Mike Williams is. He's just so hot and cold. So it's a cool week because then obviously we see the next week. He's the chief killer in Kansas City. Every single game except one, he's had over 100 yards and a touchdown in Kansas City when he plays them. It's unreal. He owns the Chiefs in Kansas City. Arizona, AJ Green and Greg Dortch. And I am a huge AJ Green fan, and it's painful to put AJ Green in the washed up category. But he had like 3 touchdowns that he full on dropped in his hands. It was perfect passes from Kyler, and he straight up dropped them. So, not the toughest receivers to play against. And you already mentioned the Titans. I mean, Treylon Burks and Robert Woods aren't exactly scaring you at this point. Woods being a great receiver, but at his age and his role in the offense, it's not very scary to you. This is the first test where they have to deal, I think, with 2 very high-powered wide receivers. And I put Jeudy very far below Cortland Sutton, but in the grand scheme of things, 2 very high-powered guys. Speedy with Jeudy. Sutton is a very underrated receiver, in my opinion. And they also have to deal with a team who's doing very well with the tight end position, and they have 2 really good running backs. They have a lot on their hands this week, and I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to handle it all. I think Denver plays very well this week. Knock on wood. I'm putting a lot of metaphorical money on Denver this week. So, and that's not just because I have Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, and Cortland Sutton on multiple teams, but I look at the Raiders and I say that team is bad. That team is not good. And I can't get around the fact, they're 7th in yards. okay, the fucking Dolphins were 3-0, and even if Tua played that entire game, they were still losing. So it doesn't matter. Like, the Steelers were 9-0 and then lost in the first round of the playoffs. Bad teams can look good at points. The Raiders are a bad team that still have not looked good, but their defense has managed to fake-hade themselves into looking good. You don't like that, Matt?
No, I think saying that they're a bad team that hasn't looked good I think is disrespectful because they've only lost the 3 games by a combined 13 points this season. It's not like they're getting blown out. I mean, the problem with them last year is they were winning those games. They had 5 games that were incredibly close, including those overtime games. That script has flipped on them so far this season. So I still don't believe they're a bad team. I think they've had some bad luck. I think they're still as good as any team in this AFC West when it's all said and done. You've got the Broncos who are first place at 2-1. So they're only 2 games back. They win this game. They're kind of right back in that AFC West, who's as generally has been disappointing this season. We thought this was going to be the best division in football. And quite frankly, the NFC East has turned out to be that so far, which nobody saw coming. I don't care who you are. Nobody saw that NFC East being the top division so far. Again, we're not even at the quarter pole mark here of the NFL season. But I look at everything there, and I'm like, you know what? 3 losses there by combined 13 points. There's teams who've lost 1 game by more than 13 points so far this season. So I think everyone needs to do the old Aaron Rodgers here. Relax. Vegas has some things they need to figure out, especially on their run defense thing, where they're giving up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to the running back position. So if you're a Javonte Williams, even Melvin Gordon, I mean, that's somewhere you can attack because they've given up 285 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and then 21 receptions for 193 yards. So there is going to be opportunity for these running backs, especially someone like Javonte Williams, who's second on the Broncos in targets. Yes, he is ahead of Jerry Jeudy in that aspect. He is the number 2 wide receiver in Denver.
That's the statistic we love to hear. Jerry Jeudy is not the number 2 receiver because he's bad. That's what we love to hear. All right, Carrington, trade offer. Oh, we love trades. I know the side I'm on. So he's trading away Fournette and Christian Kirk, and he gets Austin Eckler and Devonta Smith in a PPR. Joel, which side?
I'm going to take Eckler and Smith, and I don't think that's particularly close. And I like Fournette and Kirk, but yeah, I think that's Eckler and Smith by quite a bit.
Matt?
Well, I know where Joe is going on this one, so I'm going to play the devil's advocate here because
Nice.
I'm going to go choose Leonard Fournette here because that's what we need. We'd have these conversations about both sides so you get a better understanding of them. I'm going to take Fournette here. We've got Donovan Smith coming back. That left side of that Buccaneers offensive line is going to get fixed. Tampa Bay loves to run to the left. Fournette is on the field like 84% of the snaps, and he's actually running the ball where Austin Eckler is not doing that right now. Austin Eckler last week was like averaging 1.9 yards per carry. That's against I can't even remember who they're playing. It was not good. So running back for running back, I'm actually leaning towards Leonard Fournette here. And a wide receiver, Christian Kirk is my boy here. I mean, I love that Duval duo there of Kirk and Zay Jones. I'm all in on both these guys. I think Christian Kirk is going to be a top 10 wide receiver this entire season when it's all said and done. Doug Peterson is doing an excellent job of moving Kirk around in this formation here. 41% of Christian Kirk snaps have been against safeties and linebackers. If you put Christian Kirk on a safety or a linebacker, it is game over there. Target share is there. He's getting like 30% of a target share in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is looking good. I still think Donovan Smith or Devontae Smith is going to be fantastic. Don't get me wrong. This is a pretty close trade for me, but I still wonder you're going to have ups and downs when it comes to Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. I mean, both these guys can put up good numbers in any given week, but there's going to be those ups and downs, I think, for him all season long, where I think Christian Kirk's going to give you that nice, stable line straight across the board. He might not have those boom weeks like Devontae Smith might get, but he's going to be consistently in that 18 to 20 fantasy points per contest type range.
It's a fair argument. Eckler is better than Fournette, and I don't think that's particularly close. Fournette's probably the better running back in between the tackles, but I think all around, I think Eckler is a better running back. And to me, Devonta Smith beats Christian Kirk in most categories: route running, hands. I think all around Smith is better. You're getting a receiver who's arguably been in the most efficient offense in the NFL so far this season, which is weird to say for the Eagles, but they've probably been the most efficient offense so far this year. The flip side of that trade, the Chargers have been very inefficient this year, especially on the ground. But there's no way Eckler stays like this the whole year. So I think you're getting Eckler at a low price. You're getting Smith at a high price. Like, to me, you're like, it weirdly feels like Eckler's the throw-in in this trade just because of how poorly he's been so far this year. But I think get him before this week because he has a really good matchup against Houston. Khalil Herbert smoked him last week. I think Eckler can do the same this week. So I will go with Eckler and Devonta Smith. It was a great argument, Matt. I do. I appreciate the devil's advocate because that's always fun to play that side of things.
One of them still plays in that AFC South division. So they still get 2 Colts games, 2 Texans games, and 2
Titans.
Titans games. So, I mean, those are some pretty favorable games.
He's already played 1 Colts game. So he's already played 1. And he played well in that matchup. So, and I love Kirk. I was touting Zay Jones before the season. So I'm like, I'm on the Zay Jones train. That's not to say I don't like Kirk, but I'm on the Zay Jones train. So that's my guy down in Jacksonville. Motherfucker dice dealer. Start two. Injury strike back. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameis Winston both out. So Olave, Hollywood Brown, Brandon Cooks, DK Metcalf, Godwin. I believe we got the same question on our Wednesday show. And we talked about as if Winston was in. And at that point, it was an obvious Chris Olave play because Jameis Winston was in. Now, not so much. So, Joel, let's assume every guy here is healthy because I believe Hollywood and Godwin are going into the week as questionable. Let's just assume everyone's healthy. Who are you going with for 2 of them? It's PPR.
I'm going to start with Metcalf. He's the only one kind of basically without questions in this whole equation. Playing against a bad Detroit secondaries. I think he's the number 1 for sure. I still don't trust Godwin. I don't think he's going to get, even if he plays, I think he's going to be on a snap count. Hollywood, I mean, that game is weird, right? I mean, there's a lot going on in that game. That game could just be a hard under. I mean, you got the storm going through there. The field could be in terrible shape. You've got an all-time historically bad coaching matchup in that game, right? You got Matt Rule and Cliff Kingsbury.
Yes.
That is an all-time bad coaching matchup.
2 former Big 12 coaches, because you know who has the best coaches in college football? The Big 12.
So I want to stay away from that game if at all possible. Hollywood's questionable and he's a guy, if he's got a little ding in his hamstring or groin or something like that, whatever the injury is, I mean, that's a guy whose entire game is based on speed. So that could take him out of the equation entirely. Olave is kind of the big question mark here is what does his production translate to Andy Dalton? I don't think he'll be as targeted as heavily as he was with Jameis. I think that's going to become a Andy Dalton and Alvin Kamara show. And that's another game. Those London games, they always turn into slogs. I put that in my write-up in the blurred lines. Those London games are always low scoring. So I'm going to kind of stay away from him. I'll go Cooks and DK. Cooks has got to come out of this at some point. The targets are there. It's just the production, the efficiency hasn't been there. That's got to regress at some point. So I'm going to take DK and Cooks.
Matt.
I really thought we were going to be on the same page on this. When you started off with DK Metcalf, I'm like, okay, we're halfway there. We're going to feel good about this one. So I'm in on DK Metcalf too as well. I mean, the matchup is fantastic. Detroit can't stop receivers. Everything you could possibly want there is going on in for Seattle and for DK Metcalf. Chris Godwin, I'm out on as well. I want to see him do something on the field before I put him in. Hey, Tampa Bay, kudos to you. Rashad Perryman, thank God he's out of the lineup because Julio Jones may be back. Russell Gage is dealing with that little bit of a hamstring injury. Mike Evans is going to get the crap peppered out of him this week. I mean, there's 3 rules of Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. You punch Marshawn Lattimore in the face whenever you get an opportunity. And then the 3rd rule is you get peppered by Tom Brady for defending his honor. So that's what we're going with here this week for Mike Evans. I got him as like my wide receiver 3. So that means there's nothing there for Chris Godwin. Now, for me, it comes down to Chris Olave. I'm not even worried about fading him this week. We've seen historically with Andy Dalton last season with Chicago, he peppered Allen Robinson there in the first opportunity he got. So then obviously Darnell Mooney got his play there. So I'm not worried about Olave being wide receiver 1 with Andy Dalton. That feels good. So you should feel comfortable with that. But it comes down to Hollywood versus Brandon Cooks for me for that number 2 spot. And right now I've got Hollywood ahead of Cooks in my rankings, and it's not because Cooks can't get the job done. It's just he hasn't got the job done so far this season. And until I can see a little bit more production, I can recommend him regardless of the situation there in Los Angeles there. In a game that I think that the Texans are going to be throwing the ball all over the field and trying to get into this game. So give me Hollywood, give me DK Metcalf this week.
The game is in Houston, so they are at home. I like Brandon Cooks this week. Asante Samuel Jr. is good. It's still the fucking Chargers. He could end up on Michael Davis one play. Like the rest of that second, again, Derwin James excluded from this conversation. A top.
Do we know if J.C. Jackson's back yet? He was out last week. Is he back this week?
I don't know. That's a great question.
That's something to definitely keep an eye on too. If he's back, I mean, he's a pretty darn good corner.
Yeah, I mean, I watched J.C. Jackson for however long he was in New England on a week-to-week basis. Jackson can still get beat, and believe Cooks beat him multiple times when they practiced against each other. So they know each other well because Cooks and J.C. Jackson did play on the same team for a season. I'm going to go Cooks, and I'm going to say Chris Olave because I hate myself. Man, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but no Michael Thomas. Chris Olave is the one. You want to talk about a bad secondary? The Minnesota Vikings have a non-existent secondary. So, I mean, you bring up a point like Andy Dalton tends to pepper his wide receiver ones. AJ Green, arguably a top 5 receiver of his generation of the 2010s, was a top 5 receiver with one of the most mediocre quarterbacks to ever live in Andy Dalton. So I'm not saying Olave is AJ Green, and I'm not saying Andy Dalton is what he was in, 2012, 2013, but same principles still apply. Olave is the youngest guy there. I think Kamara is absolutely disgustingly awful right now. So I don't think Kamara does anything, and he burned me last year. So he's just on my shit list, but he's continually proving me correct. I think Olave has a good game because of no Michael Thomas. If there was Michael Thomas, I'd be a little worried, but no Michael Thomas. I will go Olave and Brandon Cooks. If you want to roll and be consensus, I am okay with DK Metcalf over Brandon Cooks. That is fine. I will seed if you want that one consistent person there, Dice Dealer.
Well, I got my fingers crossed that we have a Alvin Kamara bounce back week here. I mean, I need it more than anything. I mean, this is what I need. And it's the Minnesota Vikings. Last time he played him, he was wearing like green and red shoes and absolutely ran all over him there. But you talk about this Minnesota Vikings pass defense. They literally just signed a former player off the streets who then went off and got himself hurt like a day into practice. I mean, that's where we're at with the Minnesota Vikings secondary.
They suck. They're so bad.
It's horrible.
Atrocious. Cameron Dantzler still is employed, which blows my mind. Okay. Chris Gilson. Need to choose a wide receiver 2 and a flex. So we need 2 guys here. What 2 players out of the 3? Thielen or Dortch? So let's just start there because obviously Rashad Penny cannot be played at the wide receiver 2 position. Are we going Thielen or Dortch? Joel, just give me a name.
Thielen.
Matt? I'm not liking either one of these options here, to be honest with you. But
I agree.
I guess if you made me choose, I'd probably lean back to Dortch. I mean, it's really a toss-up here of what you want to come down to. These games in London always scare me as far as offense. I think we've had, of all the games that we've had there, maybe 2 have been fantasy relevant. The rest have been absolutely horrible. It's hard to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning knowing that you got Adam Thielen in your lineup. And before you have a cup of coffee, watch him put a goose egg up there for you. So I'm going to go to Dortch on this one, and I'm going to go Penny in my flex.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Penny's the consistent flex probably at that point. Are you going with the 2 receivers? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've always said that I hate West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast. Yes, the game is at 3 o'clock, so it is, normal like body clock time for them if they were to have a late game on the West Coast. So that's not anything different. But I still don't like those teams traveling to the East Coast. But
how much further east do you want to get?
Yeah, how much? Yeah, we're going a lot further east with the Vikings. They're going 6 time zones over, not even 5. They're going 6 time zones over because they're in the Central Time Zone. And now, granted, I normally play the time zone game there, right? But New Orleans and Minnesota are in the same time zone. They're literally they're fucking stacked on top of each other, basically, if you look at a map. So there's no real difference there in terms of the matchup. I am going to reluctantly say Greg Dortch because he is not traveling 6 hours across the pond and playing at what 8:30 a.m. body clock time. Like that's just and like again, you're getting up for that game probably at 5 a.m. probably earlier body clock time. So yeah, I will roll with Dortch, who is going to play a more usual schedule, and then Penny has a good matchup, I think, against Detroit. So Robert, got a couple in here from Robert. Is Taysom startable at tight end? I mean, it's a great question. Let me tell you, it is a great question. Now, Matt's shaking his head no. I am gonna decide based on who gives a better argument, unless Joel's argument is also no. So, Joel, what do you think?
No, I don't think he's startable at all. I mean, you're hoping for a wildcat touchdown with Taysom Hill. I mean, he may get a few snaps at quarterback, but it's not like he's going to play an entire half there or anything. If the option is Dalton Schultz, or is that Andy Dalton? Okay,
Andy Dalton.
Yeah. I don't know what his option is, but I can't imagine it's worse than Taysom Hill.
Matt,
I mean, I think Andy Dalton is going to enjoy himself from Jawan Johnson. Now, the one thing to keep in mind here is who is the New Orleans Saints wide receiver option that we're not talking about right now. Every time the backup quarterback comes into play, he's bringing someone from his practice squad along with him. We saw that with Teddy Bridgewater there on Thursday Night Football. He brought a guy in with him last week there. Who was the guy that started getting peppered?
Trent Sherfield.
Sherford, yeah. I mean, he came in and also he was getting peppered with targets. Andy Dalton's going to bring himself someone off that who he's been practicing with the twos all season, whether that's a Marquez Callaway or whoever that happens to be. We're going to see a guy who all of a sudden has some fantasy relevancy there. I don't think it's Taysom Hill unless there's an injury to Andy Dalton, and then maybe you have a little bit of a play for Taysom Hill in the tight end position. But right now, I got nothing. I can't put him in my lineup. It's not happening.
I can tell you, Robert, it's really enticing for the fact that their backup quarterback is currently starting for them. I don't know if they pull out more Taysom Hill funky strings or anything like that, but I don't think Dennis Allen's that guy. If it was Sean Payton there, I'd say, hell yeah, fire up Taysom Hill, because Sean Payton's ego is bigger than a hot air balloon. So at this point in time, no. I would stay away from Taysom Hill. If Jameis Winston is out next week and you see Taysom Hill is used a lot in the offense, then maybe at that point we can start having that conversation. But for right now, I'm going to lean no. Mr. Scampers, my favorite profile picture with a little kitty. Half PPR. He needs 2. Jeff Wilson, A.J. Dillon, Curtis Samuel, DJ Chark. Half PPR, Joel. Who are you going with?
I'm going to start with Dillon because I think the Packers are going to try and run the ball down New England's throat. They're going to try and play clock game. I think their offense is really going to be their defense, right? They get Brian Hoyer starting. I think they should probably be a favorite to get a pick six. I think Rasul Douglas is almost guaranteed to get a pick six in that game. I think they're going to try and take the air out of the ball and just play field position and time of possession. So I'll take Dillon as the 1. 2, I just don't trust Curtis Samuel. So give me Chark with the ARSB out of the game and DeAndre Swift. And you can't trust TJ Hawkinson.
Matt.
This is interesting. First, Curtis Samuel, he's a must start. I'm throwing him in there. He's my wide receiver 21, I think, this week. I love everything that Curtis Samuel is doing. Targets are there. Routes are there. I mean, everything you can imagine is there. Timing might. I mean, Micah Parsons might be all over Carson Wentz all day long. That could be a problem for this team. But I think Curtis Samuel and penciling him in. Now, where it gets interesting is that number 2 spot. Jeff Wilson is going against a Rams team that's, like I said, second best against fantasy against the running back position. A.J. Dillon is facing the number 5 team in fantasy points against to the running back position. Meanwhile, DJ Chark is also going against the 5th best team against wide receivers as far as fantasy is concerned in Seattle. So you've got basically 3 options here. who are kind of battling an uphill fight here to see how that all works out. Now, the one thing that gives me the advantage of why I think DJ Chark might be the play here is no Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's no other option. He could be the number one guy, and we know that there's volume in this passing game for the Detroit Lions. It's not going to be pretty, but I think DJ Chark is going to get that volume this week, and I think that's what's going to separate him. It might not be pretty, but at the end of the day, he may end up with 8 catches for 76 yards and maybe a touchdown there. With A.J. Dillon, I don't know what's going on there with New England. I think that clock is going to be very interesting, how that very few we know New England's probably going to run it. Heavy dose of Damian Harris, heavy dose of Ramon Stevenson there. And then again, LA's run defense is as good as any. So I feel Curtis Samuel is the best play, the safest, and with the highest ceiling of this group. And I think DJ Chark may be the next safest of the 4.
New England has a bend don't break mentality on defense. So when Green Bay's in the red zone, AJ Dillon's been the guy near the goal line. So I will go with Dillon because I think Green Bay does end up in the red zone probably 2 or 3 times. So your odds with Dillon falling in are going to be good. And half PPR, Jeff Wilson's not catching a lot of passes out of the backfield. So it's not really a difference maker there. I'll go Chark because ARSB is out. I'm going to go Dillon and Chark. I'm okay with Curtis Samuel, but I like Chark and Dillon just a little bit more in this situation.
Fun fact when it comes to that New England defense, I'm glad you said that bend don't break because they haven't broke this season against running backs. They have yet to give up a running or a receiving touchdown to the running back position.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate New England. And by the way, It was a fumble. It wasn't a tuck rule. It was a fumble. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
According to the rule, it wasn't a fumble. Was it a fumble? Yes. According to the rule, was it a fumble? No. That's like was Des Bryant's
it was a
catch a catch? It was a catch, but by rule, it was not a catch. And the rule is stupid. That's why they changed it. Like Calvin Johnson. It was a fucking catch.
Oh, it was a catch.
But by rule, for some reason, it was not a catch. So, I agree. It was a fumble. By rule, it was not a fumble. So, I like when the rules work in our favor. It's great. Robert, again, he's got a couple more. Dubs, Judy, Ayuk, or Taysom Hill for boom tight end. So, basically a flex. Start one. We already talked about Taysom Hill. Definite no. So, Dubs, Judy, or Ayuk this week. Joel.
This bothers me because I hate Ayuk on principle, but I think he's the best option here.
Matt?
I'm going to go with Ayuk here too. We're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo under center. He has been the most targeted wide receiver in San Francisco since Garoppolo came back. 16 targets for Ayuk so far. Judy, I can't trust. Romeo Doubs, hey, I love myself some Romeo Doubs. Romeo, where art thou, Romeo? But Brandon Ayuk is the play this week.
By principle, I hate Brandon Ayuk. So I will say, I also hate Jerry Jeudy, which is weird. And of the 3 of them, Dubs is the lowest on the list of people who I would start. So I can't really put you in that bad of a situation, Robert. I will reluctantly agree with Ayuk as well. I am a way bigger fan of Deebo Samuel. And man, did Jimmy Garoppolo look like Jimmy Garoppolo last week? Let me tell you, that put a big smile on my face when he committed a safety and threw a pick 6 on the same play. It was incredible. So
I want to point out this here real quick here because we talked about Rashawn Slater missing time, right? We talked about that and how Gerald Everett may be asked to block reluctantly. Well, George Kittle can actually block. He is a very good blocking tight end. Trent Williams is out, rolled that ankle 4 to 6 weeks. Now, normally I'd say Ayuk is kind of a sit there when you've got both Kittle and Deebo Samuel in the lineup. But I think Kittle's going to be asked to block in line a lot more this week, which means more Ayuk and more Samuel on the outsides.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. Yeah, I'll go with Ayuk. He says he has Curtis Samuel and or maybe Deebo Samuel. He has Samuel and Sutton. So my guess is he has Deebo and Cortland Sutton. So, I mean, good. But yeah, Ayuk from all of us. And he also has ETN and Robinson. Does he play ETN over Dameon Pierce? Joel?
No. Chargers run defense is still terrible. You got to start
Correct.
Pierce.
Matt?
Yeah, the Chargers run defense is the 6th most forgiving to running back position as far as fantasy is concerned. They've already given up 307 yards rushing, 134 passing. I mean, you're starting Dameon Pierce this week regardless of the situation there. You know Houston's still going to run him no matter what. So I think you start him.
Yeah, Pierce all around. Did he have 100 against Chicago last week, or was he just under? I forget exactly what he had, but he had a good
like 75 or something.
Yeah, he had a good week, solid week last week in Chicago, who has a much better run defense and defense all around than the Los Angeles Chargers. So I will take Pierce 100% there. From Lucius, start Ezekiel, Elliott, or James Robinson. Joel.
Zeke. That should be a much more forgiving matchup than I think Robinson's going to get game scripted out of that game. And Zeke, Washington's defense is terrible, so I'm going to start Zeke here pretty easily.
Matt.
Yeah, I got Ezekiel Elliott a few spots higher than James Robinson. I think it's about RB21 versus RB26, somewhere in that ballpark. I haven't looked at it quite yet, but I know they're pretty close. I think Elliott's got the advantage, and that's ugly. I'd rather start Tony Pollard over Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, I don't think Robinson gets scripted out. I said that last week, and I'm like, oh, they'll be playing from behind a lot against the Chargers. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but James Robinson is like the surefire better bet than ETN at this point, just in terms of obviously who the coach likes. Remember, the guy who drafted Travis Etienne was fired halfway through the season last year because he shouldn't have drafted Travis Etienne, and then among other things that he did. So Doug Peterson comes in with a fresh mind and sees that James Robinson is cheaper and as good, if not better, than his counterpart in Travis Etienne, because he can also do it all. But yeah, Ezekiel Elliott this week against the Commanders. I'm not worried about Robinson getting scripted out, but I mean the Commanders fucking blow. So I will happily start Zeke over J-Rob this week just because the matchup is way better. From Shades, our standard guy. Standard scoring, Dameon Pierce, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert. Joel.
I think this may be a little hot takey here, but I think Herbert should be the top-ranked running back in the field this week. I mean, he's going to have his volume expectation is through the roof, right? I mean, they will not let Justin Fields throw, which is probably the right decision. He's going to get a ton of volume. Montgomery's not there. They're not getting Tristan Ebner's a kick returner. He's not going to get any real volume. Herbert on a volume standpoint should be looked at like Nick Chubb without Kareem Hunt. So I think Herbert needs to be ranked. And the Giants gave up 15-75-1 to Zeke last week on a Monday. They're playing on a short week. I think Herbert needs to be the top-ranked running back in the field this week. So I'm starting with him. I'll go with Kamara as the two. Like I said, I think he's going to get a ton of volume with Andy Dalton playing. So I like all those options. But in standard, I'll go with Herbert and Kamara.
Matt. Oh, you're muted, Matt. Oh, no. Oh, no.
There we go. That's better. I don't know why I muted. Oh, yeah, because that kid's coming running around the house here.
Nice.
I like all these options here as well. I mean, I don't think you go wrong with either one of these ones. I'm going to go with Kamara and Jamal Williams because I got those two the highest on my list. I mean, you look at what the Minnesota Vikings, they've been giving it up to running backs. I know Kamara's been struggling. I know Joe's like anti-Kamara at this point, but when you're giving up 27.77 fantasy points to the running back position so far this season, they've given up 3 touchdowns in 3 games. I feel good about Kamara there, especially with no Michael Thomas working the underbelly of that Vikings defense, which there's a lot of it, let's be honest. I think Kamara can attack that as well. Jamal Williams, man, you know what? If nothing else, I just want to see another couple thrusts thrown in the whole situation there. So Jamal Williams is going to find the end zone against Seattle. They've given up 25.4 fantasy points per contest so far this season, giving up 2 rushing touchdowns. I feel good about that as well. And then, we talked about Dameon Pierce, how good of a start as he is this week, and Khalil Herbert. I mean, you can make an argument him better than all 4 of these guys if you really want to. But I'm going to go with Kamara and Williams because that's who I've got highest on my rankings.
We all know who I'm avoiding. And especially because it is a standard league. Alvin Kamara's value in a standard league is terrible. Jamal Williams and Herbert are the guys for me. I love Herbert's volume. Obviously, we've seen the volume with Jamal Williams. I mean, it's incredible what DeAndre Swift can do on 8 touches, but Williams is the guy there. Craig Reynolds is not going to steal carries from him. It's when Jamal Williams needs a breather. That's when Craig Williams is going to come in. Or Craig Reynolds, excuse me. But Jamal Williams is going to get all the goal line carries. So your highest touchdown upside to me falls with Jamal Williams and Herbert, and that's what you want in standard. Kamara's dog shit, and Dameon Pierce would be the third guy on the list. Like that, you got. I'm not joking. It is incredible to me that Alvin Kamara is still a first round pick because he doesn't have dump off city Drew Brees anymore. He's not in that same Sean Payton mentality of an offense. He's bad at running in between the tackles at times. Outside of the tackles and in space, he is one of the best in the league. But the issue is they're not doing any of that. Mostly because their offense is terrible and they can't get to that point. But Jameis Winston has never been, let me dump it off to this guy. It's, let me throw it into triple coverage and see if my guy can catch it. That's been Jameis Winston's game, and no one has been able to change that from him. I think Alvin Kamara is by far the lowest on this list, and I will go with Williams and Herbert because I don't know if Herbert's the RB1. That is bold, but he obviously has the opportunity to be in an offense that as of 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, Justin Fields was 33rd in the NFL in passing attempts. There are 32 NFL teams, ladies and gentlemen, just in case you are new to football. And the reason he is now inside the top 32 is because Dak Prescott and Trey Lance are both hurt. That is the only reason Justin Fields now lies within the top 32 in passing attempts in the NFL is because 2 former starters are now hurt. So that's how bad that passing offense is in Chicago. I like the take, Joel. I hope it's right. Lucius, need one wide receiver, need a flex. It's a half point again. Hollywood Brown, Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Jamal Williams. So obviously we can choose 2 receivers here, but if you're going to play Jamal, he needs to be in the flex. So Joel, who are you going with?
I love Gabe Davis, but I don't trust that ankle injury. I don't think he's 100%. The same thing with Hollywood Brown, whatever he's dealing with. I like Christian Kirk, and I think you got to remember ARSB kind of lit up the Eagles in week 1 as well. So that's a really good matchup. And I do like Jamal Williams. The touchdown upside is there. He's going to get volume against a bad Seattle team that's been bad against the runs. I think this is pretty easily Kirk and Jamal Williams. And if you would have asked me that 3 weeks ago, I would have laughed at myself. But given the circumstances, I think those two are the pretty clear 1 and 2 here.
Matt?
PPR rankings, I have it as Kirk at 17, Hollywood Brown at 18, Gabe Davis at 21. Saying that it's now half point PPR, I'm probably going to go with Christian Kirk and Jamal Williams here. I mean, Hollywood Brown is right there as well. I would be okay if you went Kirk and Hollywood Brown, but I think this with half point PPR, Kirk and Williams is the play.
Kirk and Jamal Williams. I'm not the biggest Kirk fan this week just because of who he's playing. Slay has been on. I'm not the biggest James Bradbury fan, and neither CJ Gardner-Johnson. So if he's matched up against CJ or James Bradbury, I think Kirk will have a good day. But I mean, even that Matt brought up, he's been lining up on safeties and linebackers somehow for some dumb fucking reason. So if that happens, they don't really have. I mean, Kazir White is good, but he's not by any means a pass coverage linebacker by any means, especially in man-to-man. And they don't really have a safety that can keep up with him either. So I like Kirk, and then Jamal Williams should have a fantastic week this week. All right. We technically have 1 minute left. We will go over that time, but here is some rapid fire because we just got 6 that came in. J2 Nice, stuck on who to start his flex options. James Robinson, Cordell Patterson, and Jamal Williams. He just needs 1, gentlemen. Joel, who are you going with?
Jamal Williams.
Matt.
I'm going to go with Cordell Patterson.
Okay. I'll go with Jamal Williams as well. I'm okay on Cordell Patterson's front, but especially if Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney don't play, that makes it more enticing for Cordell Patterson. Mr. Scampers needs 2. Dalvin Cook, Mike Williams, banged up Gabe Davis, and Rashad Bateman in the same game. Who are you picking? Joel.
These are all kind of big upside guys, but massive low floors. I'm going to go with Williams and Bateman.
Matt.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list here right now, and I've got Gabe Davis and Bateman ranked higher than Mike Williams here. So I'm going to go with that. And Dalvin Cook, I can't trust that shoulder right now. So I don't even know if he's going to play.
I don't like the options because of just they're all high ceiling guys. I weirdly think Rashad Bateman's the most reliable guy here. So Bateman and Williams, because Mike Williams has played great on the road this year. It's been one game, but he played great. Do we trust Dak upon return? He's asking a week early, but Joel, do you trust Dak upon his return?
I'd be nervous. It's the same thing that Russell Wilson dealt with last year, and he tried to come back sooner than we expected and really struggled. I don't know. I'd be kind of nervous about that, depending on what your options are, obviously.
Cooper Rush is better than Dak.
I mean, fuck at this fucking point, yeah. I would not trust Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones, MD, is bringing him back way too early. If it was a longer timetable of return, I think I would feel much more comfortable upon his return. But rushing him back is not the move when you're 2-0 with your backup. Like, that's not the move. Like, if you were bad and you were in the hopes of like making the playoffs this year, then maybe okay, you can push him back a little further. But when you're 2-0 with your backup, what is the need to rush? And odds are you're going to be 3-0 with your backup after this week. So what's the reason to rush him back? It doesn't make sense to me. So I do not trust him, in short. Rendon, would you guys trade Dameon Pierce, DJ Moore, and Dawson Knox for DK Metcalf, TJ Hawkinson, Cam Akers? So how I am going to decipher this trade for everybody, I'm going to ask you who is better because it's all even at every position. Who would you rather have? Joel, Dameon Pierce, or Akers? Who would you rather have?
Pierce.
Matt.
Push. It's even.
Okay, that's fair on push. I'll say Pierce just a little bit. DJ Moore or DK Metcalf? Joel.
I don't think it's going to be this week, but I think eventually DJ Moore is going to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, and I trust him more than DK by a bit, but it's close.
Matt.
Redraft DK Metcalf because Baker Mayfield's trash.
Garbage. Absolutely garbage. I agree with that, and after what DJ Moore was saying this week, I have a soft spot for DJ Moore, and I will say DJ Moore. It's very close. Let me be very honest here. I have a soft spot for DJ Moore. It's very close, but I agree. I think he's too good to not get going, which is what we're waiting for. And we saw if you've been on Twitter, you saw what the reporters asked him about Baker Mayfield and like the tight NFL windows. He basically wanted to say that Baker Mayfield is a trash quarterback and Robbie Anderson, his wide receiver counterpart, could throw better than him. Is essentially what he wanted to say. And the last one,
language on that interview was fantastic.
Oh my God, it was amazing. I loved it. Dawson Knox or TJ Hawkinson?
Hawkinson, but it's basically a push.
Matt.
Hawkinson as well.
Yeah, that's it. To me, it's a push. I'll lean Hawkinson too. So at that point, Joel, you're leaning the Pierce side.
Yes.
Okay, Matt, you're leaning more the Akers
Metcalf side. Yeah.
Metcalf side. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think just from the conversation, it seems pretty damn even. Like from what we just talked about, it's pretty damn even. Honestly, I would say I think you're comparing the top guys. You're comparing DK Metcalf and DJ Moore. So who do you like more, Rendon, of those two? Because Knox and Hawkinson are both up and down guys, and they're going to be a push. Akers and Pierce are also going to be a push. I think you yourself just need to look at it and say, do I like DK Metcalf or DJ Moore more through the rest of the season? I think that's how you have to look at it. Because, I mean, to everybody here, we had strong opinions on Moore or DK. Everybody else was essentially a push. So, and I
think it really comes down to how do you feel about Akers? I mean, do you trust Akers going forward or not? That's really kind of the only real difference in this trade.
Yeah. Very even across the board. All right. Final two. Tarnbear 10. Full PPR league. Yes, Josh Reynolds. Do I start him over either London or Amari Cooper? That is a heavy no. And Reynolds is questionable too. So I have to say, it's not the worst question in the world because of the chemistry that Goff and Reynolds have had prior. It's not the worst question. It's only bad because of the names that you asked to start him over. London and Cooper. First off, Amari Cooper has finally looked like a consistent wide receiver one. And Drake London has looked fantastic. So, and he's also scored the last 2 weeks, correct? Did he score in week 2? I know he scored last week, but I forget if he scored against the Rams. I'm not sure.
2 was the Rams, and he had a big game, but I don't think he scored.
Yeah, he had a big game against the Rams, but he scored against the Seahawks last week. I think he has another great chance of scoring this week. And obviously, Amari Cooper, that Falcons secondary isn't great. A.J. Terrell is great, but he lets up a lot of catches.
Plus, those two teams are 5-1 to the over this year combined. It's indoors. I think that's a shootout.
I think it's going to be a good game. Atlanta has surprisingly looked really good this season. And I don't mean like really good, like, oh my God,
competent.
Falcon. Yeah, they've looked, we expected them to be a top 5 draft pick next year, and they have not looked like that in the slightest. So, last one, Robert rounding us off. He has Kansas City. Oh my God, is this our defense? Woo! He has the Chiefs and the Niners D, and I have the Rams and the Bucks. Do I swap Bucks for Green Bay? Yes.
Yes.
You do not want any defense that plays against the Kansas City Chiefs.
And I think he wants a defense that plays against Brian Hoyer.
Unless you got the Indianapolis Colts, because they seem to know how to shut down Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Go Colts. Oh, we love that. Yeah, I mean, against Brian Hoyer, this should.
Hey, it's Axel Hoyer, by the way. His real name's Axel. We need to put some respect on that.
Is it really?
It is.
Why the hell does he go by Brian?
Yeah,
I know. If my name was Axel, I'm going by Axel.
Axel.
Yeah, right.
I mean, then again, he looks like a straight up dad. So, like, I get it.
He definitely looks like a Brian. There's no doubt about it. He looks like a Brian.
He just looks like an average white dude, which 100% screams Brian. He does not scream Axel in the slightest, but it'd be way cooler. I hear
Axel, I think Axel Rose. I think Axel Foley from Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, those are Axels. That Brian's a Brian.
I think Axel from Malcolm in the Middle, right? Isn't that a character? Right? On that, there was a TV show recently that I think they made off of Malcolm in the Middle.
It was The Middle.
The Middle. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, Axel. That's the only Axel I know. And then the Axel on like a car and a train. So it's just cool. I don't know why you'd go by Brian. So they've also, Shades brings up, he sort of rumor of traded DJ Moore to the Chiefs. Is that a real thing?
Please no. Please no. Please let it be wrong. I hope that's wrong altogether. Kansas City, get out of here.
Listen. As a DJ Moore fantasy fan, wow, would that be heaven? As someone who hates the Chiefs, I do not want that. I do not want that in the slightest. So I hope it's not for real life reasons. For fantasy football reasons, I very much hope that's a thing. So very torn there. Oh, gentlemen.
That rule is a short timer. That's going to be DJ Moore's going to be fine sooner than later. They're not trading him.
Maybe if they fire Matt Rule, then they'll figure it out. Or maybe just get anybody except Baker Mayfield, and they'll be totally
bring back
fine.
Darnold. Let's go.
Darnold, PJ Walker, Jake Delhomme,
Kyle
Allen, who is the Jimmy Clausen, right? Didn't they have Jimmy Clausen or something back then? Yeah. Any of the garbage quarterbacks you've had, but Cam Newton right now better than Baker Mayfield. Gentlemen, thanks for joining. I hope you guys had some fun.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure. I mean, it's the first time, so I really have nothing to really gauge it against, but hey, it was a good time.
As long as it was a good time and you don't hate yourself afterwards. So this is great. And
the secret is coming into the show hating yourself. Therefore, we're still good.
Set expectations low, so that way when you exceed them, you're always happy. That's what I
tell this to my kids all the time. You set that bar low every once in a while, you trip over it, and people will praise you for it. You set it too high, you'll never meet it.
Exactly. Words to live by in corporate America right there. Set the bar low, so that way when you do the bare minimum for your job, you're praised for it. Yes. Matt Donnelly quote. Exactly. All right. For Joel at the Joel Wirth, Matt at Matt Donnelly FF.
That is correct.
Oh, I nailed it. Yes, he didn't even
Nailed
have Oh, yes, I remembered from the tweet. It's not at Bismarck Larks, but please follow the team that I work for because I'm the director of content. That'd be great if you could follow us at Bismarck Larks. I am at Joe_Zollo. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Tomorrow, if you are a DFS player, DFS and Chill at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can check it out with Ryan Weiss, who'll be hosting that. I believe Kira's there. I forget who their guest is off the top of my head, but they were talking DFS tomorrow. There are a lot of juicy DFS matchups this week due to injuries. There's probably some really cheap players that you can get that'll really push your lineup over the top, hopefully help you win money. So go and tune in to that. You can see articles Joel writes on the website, clubfantasyffl.com. Head over to Dynasty Vipers, where Matt does all of his content as well. You can see the logo right on his shirt right there. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you